in Wales, they love you if you're Argentinian, because it's the only place in the world where there is a Welsh colony. So you're like a rock star there, and everyone gets very excited to meet you.
Malú Ansaldo on leaving Argentina and finding a home from home in Wales. This is Writer's Mosaic, What We Leave We Carry, the series that tells the true life stories of migration to the UK.
My name's Malú Ansaldo. I was born in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, which is the capital of Argentina. And I grew up between the city and a place in the mountains, in a small village in a province called Córdoba, which is in the center of Argentina. That's where we spend our summers and a lot of time. And that was kind of very rural, very idyllic. And then in my early 20s, I moved to Patagonia. So I lived there for about 3 years in a place called Bariloche, which is by the mountains. I was working there for the National Theatre Institute, doing an audience development program for very young people across Patagonia. So I worked a lot with different, like very, very rural, isolated communities. Very soon after that, I was working in the International Theatre Festival in Buenos Aires, and I met the artistic director of a festival in the UK. They invited me to come over and work in their festival for 1 year. So I came in 2010 for a few months, worked with them. Then I went traveling for a little bit. And then the following year, they were moving on somewhere else. So they offered me a job in the festival. So I took it. And that's when I officially moved to the UK in 2011. I lived in Norwich and in London, and then for a year or so I lived on the road with a big show. I worked for Cirque du Soleil at that time, so I was basically living with the circus, so I didn't really have a home. I moved all around the world with them, and then I lived in Wales, working all across Wales with lots of different communities, and it was also idyllic because you might be putting on a show in a beach town, and I got to meet a lot of amazing people. I did a lot of hikes, and then I came back to London, and I've been in London ever since. I would say London is my home now. So I always had this fantasy that I would eventually live somewhere else, but I was pretty sure I was going to live in the US. I didn't even know where Norwich was. I had no clue. It wasn't my dream to live in the UK. It was just this opportunity to do something completely different. And the first time I came, it was amazing. I had a great experience. It was like a very incredible festival. The artists that they booked were great. They had this really good energy. Everyone in the team was very nice. I made lots of friends, and it was a small place, so it was very welcoming. It was kind of very easy to integrate in that scenario. The first time I came for the experience. I was 23, I think. It was very inspiring to see how things worked. I ended up with this group of friends who, until today, they're like some of my best friends. They're like my family in the UK. I wasn't migrating the first time, definitely not. But I kind of experienced the place, and I thought, this is amazing. Like, this is wonderful. This kind of festival I don't think exists in Argentina. The reality of people who work in the arts in Argentina is very different. Like, it always gets to a point where it starts being a little bit political. There was a moment where we were working in this, it was a tango festival, and we were giving out free tickets, and there was a massive protest coming on that main road. And this building where we were giving out the free tickets was just on that avenue, and this protest kind of took over the entire house, and they kind of kidnapped us inside of the building. They closed the doors, and we were all there, and they were all covering their faces and everything, and it was very scary. And I remember the security people took us up the stairs. It's like a movie, this story. There was like a door between that building and the bank that was next to that building. So they took us out through that kind of secret door, and then we went from the bank downstairs out through a back door. And then we went around and we saw all this entire protest on the front of the building, and it was quite scary. And I remember at that time, I was leading a team of front of house people for the whole festival. And I had one of my school friends, her little sister was working in my team. And she was like 18. So the next day we were kind of scared. And so I was like, okay, don't worry, I'll walk you to your bus stop after work, because I was on my way to another job I had. I dropped this girl at her bus stop, and then I kept walking. And these two little kids, like they must have been 12 or something, they tried to rob me at gunpoint there, and they were like, come on, give us all you've got. And I was really scared, and I just kept walking really fast, and I ended up walking between the cars, and then I made it to a theater where I had some friends that were working there, and they were like, you look so pale, what happened? And I said, oh, you know, these young kids tried to rob me with the gun, and I can't believe it. Like, I was so upset. And then that night I went to my parents' house after that, and I said to them, I don't think I want to live here anymore, because it's a bit tricky. And they were like, okay, we understand, because my sister already lived abroad, so they were fine with me saying, I think I want to leave the country. When I moved officially, I remember I messaged on Facebook all the friends I made at the festival, being like, hey, I'm coming back, does anyone have a room? And one of my friends, who was also working in the festival, who today is one of my best friends, she said like, oh, there's a spare room in my house, you can come and live with us. And it was a house with 7 people and like 25 cats. And I lived in like the box room. It was like a tiny bedroom with a single bed. And that was kind of like a reality check as well, because in Argentina, I had my own house. I lived on my own. I had a car. You know, they're very different. And here I lived with like 7 people till today, 14 years later. I've never had a car again. Like, I have a bike and that's it. It was a bit hard for me at the beginning, because obviously during the festival there were lots of things to do, but when the festival finished, it was very quiet. Also, things were closing very early, and I'm always used to like, well, now not anymore, but I was used to like eating quite late, right? So many nights I ended up without dinner, because I thought I'll just eat like at 10 p.m. like normal for us, and there was nothing. And I was like, why is everything closed? So I was a bit shocked, yeah. Then also the other thing for me, I grew up speaking English. I studied in the US. So when I came, I was like, of course I'm bilingual. And then I arrived there and I was like, the reality of the accent and how people speak is quite different. And, there's not such a crazy accent in Norwich, but still for me, it was a bit complicated. So I was a bit frustrated because I was finding it harder to like do phone calls. I got used to it later on, but you know how British people are very much into accents and knowing where people are from or what their class is according to how they speak. And I was totally tone deaf to all of those things. I was like, I have no clue where anyone is from or, their background because of how they speak. I do think my standard of living I don't know if it's went down, but it certainly changed. It was quite different. Like, there's a lot of things that I say about my life in Argentina that if I say it in the UK, people assume I'm like, I grew up as a millionaire or I'm like super posh. But there's lots of things that are more normal for us. Like, I had a horse when I was growing up. We had a horse in our summer house. Now, if someone says to you, we had a horse in our summer house, you think, okay, well, they're quite, wealthy. But a lot of people have a summer house. This is a summer house that was like bought by my grandfather a million years ago in a village in the mountains. In fact, that's where my parents live now. After Norwich, I came to London and I worked at the Globe Theatre for like 5 years. That is the main thing that really changed my life that time there. Because I think that is when really this whole journey into like internationalization and working all around the world really exploded for me. So the time I was working there, the first project I did there was called the Globe to Globe Festival, and it was during the London Olympics. So it was part of the Cultural Olympiad. So it was a very incredible time in London where everything was about multiculturalism and internationalism, and there were so many amazing projects, and there was lots of funding for amazing projects. So the Globe Theatre was presenting basically the complete works of William Shakespeare. Each one was done by a different company from a different country in their own language. All of these international communities that live in London and across the UK were finally coming to the Globe, to a place where they might have never gone before because they never felt that it really talked to them. So I started having all of this experience of like, okay, I work for a British institution which is quite well known, and I'm kind of representing them, but I'm a non-British person, and sometimes people, when I would arrive, would find that weird. Between 2014 and 2016, we did a project which was a global tour of Hamlet. And so we took a production of Hamlet to every country in the world. Literally every country, so 197 according to United Nations. And I didn't go to the 197 countries, but I went to a lot of countries with them. And so we visited lots of different refugee camps in Middle East and in Africa, and we took the show to them, and it was fascinating. And that is like the project that really, really changed my life, because it really made me think about the arts, what it does, how it brings us together, how it's like language, stories, the power of storytelling. And that's when I went to live in Wales, and I was working for the National Theatre Wales. All of the shows were site-specific shows that we would go and make with different communities all across Wales. And it was amazing, and a lot of people were super welcoming. A lot of people were super open. It was interesting which stories, we were telling in those places. But there were also lots of conflicts. I mean, Wales has this thing with language. There's always a tension with England. It was just after Brexit as well. When I first came to London, I had a very big group of Argentinian friends that became kind of my family here. But after Brexit, a lot of people left. A lot of them went to live in Europe. And I started feeling sometimes when people would ask me, like, where are you from? Because obviously I have an accent, so people ask me. And because I sound Spanish, people always assume I'm from Spain. And I'm like, well, the world is bigger than Europe, think wider. Argentina is the end of the world, but we exist. So, I always ask people, where do you think I'm from? And it's quite funny to hear how long it takes them to get there. People might talk about Malvinas, about the war. Some people have family members that were in the war, so they're not hostile, but they might someone made a very bad joke once in Norwich when I was there, and my first time there, and I was like, wow, I never expected this. I never experienced racism in Argentina, and then I came here and people would make maybe a comment or a joke or something, and I was like, oh, this is okay, this is how it feels. I didn't know. I had my time in Norwich and I loved my time in Wales, but I think I feel more comfortable living in London because it's more international. Sometimes when you're in places where it's very homogeneous, the community that lives there, and you're the only one who's different, it's a bit harder. I could have gone to the best university and had the best credentials, but they're not from here, so they don't recognize them. So all I have in the UK is my work experience. It's not my education. The time I worked in Wales was really good, and it gave me that kind of, okay, I make shows here for here as well. I'm happy it was in Wales, because I think Welsh people are kind of like the rebels of the UK, and I really like it. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful nation with incredible Yes, the outdoors is just very inspiring, and the people are very, very nice and very friendly. And actually, in Wales, they love you if you're Argentinian, because there's the only place in the world where there's a Welsh colony. So you're like a rock star there, and everyone gets very excited to meet you, and they think that everyone speaks Welsh in Argentina, and like, no, they don't. But it's a small place in Patagonia. I went there, and it's really beautiful. I do feel settled, but I don't. Like, I know it's my home. I love Argentina and I love going there. I don't know if I could live there. I think that, I'm not saying politics in England or in the UK are any easier, but I think it's always been so volatile in Argentina, and it feels a bit safer here. It feels more that, if you put one foot in front of the other, you will get to a place where you kind of can not always plan, but we can't plan anymore after the pandemic, but you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of have a career and know that if you do certain things, you'll get to certain places. In Argentina, it's very much like you never know what's going to happen. You might lose everything all the time. People go, bankrupt a million times and then they reinvent themselves. We're very resilient as a nation, but it's a bit exhausting emotionally as well. I bought a flat in London, so that really gave me a footing, that really made me feel like I had a place somewhere in the world that was mine, like a little bit of, my little corner in the world. Owning something for the first time after, working very hard for long years, it really, gave me a different feeling, I guess. And now I have my family, so yeah, it's like, but we always talk about this because my partner is also a migrant. So we're always like, well, we could live in so many places. We live here and this is our home. We're Londoners, if you want. Our baby was born here. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can have a sense of permanence. I don't think about life that way. Since I came over, every time I would go home, people always ask you, oh, are you going to stay forever? Or, when are you coming back? And I'm like, why are those the only two options? Because I could live anywhere. I could move to Australia for 10 years and then go and live in Italy for another 15 years and then, go and live in the US and then, die in Costa Rica one day. Who knows? I don't think I can know, because I think I came here out of chance, maybe, yes. I think there's no such thing as like pure luck. I think I was ready and looking for a place to go and I wanted to have this experience, and you kind of maybe manifested it. I don't know, but it happened. We want a certain lifestyle. My partner also works in the arts, so we're gonna probably either have to be in places where we can do our jobs or change our jobs, or be able to work somewhere where we can work remote or access a good airport, because we need to get places with what we do. I'm still working in a similar way, taking shows around the world and doing international stuff, so I'm still doing the same kind of thing. We are lucky that we have different passports, and so we're allowed to live in different places if we want to. So yeah, it's something that we always think about, but for now, London is our home and it's the place where we work and allows us to do our job, and we definitely are very aware that it's one of the best places to live if you work in the arts and you do what we do. Brexit had an effect on me because even though I'm Argentinian, I'm also European. And I think the idea of Europe and the philosophy of Europe is something that is I believe in and I like. And so I think this is a very shared feeling. A lot of people felt a bit like let down by Britain wanting out of that, and the reasons why I feel it happened. In a big sense, racism was a big part of it happening, I think. I then had to start my paperwork to become British, which I didn't want to necessarily do. I was happy just, not being British, being European, living here, but I didn't want to get to a point where, in a few years they'd be like, no, now we've changed the rules and, you have to pay this extra tax or people have to leave or whatever. So I became British. In terms of identity, this is something that we discuss a lot in this household. My partner he's half Argentinian, half Turkish. He was born in Israel, grew up in Istanbul, and moved here for university. And now we have our baby, who's all of these mixes together. I was born in Argentina, but my dad's family comes from an Italian background, and my mom's family is from a Spanish background. So I always felt, in the way they raised us, there was very much this notion that we're Italian. I have an Italian name. We had this very, very strong sense of that kind of identity on top of our Argentinian one. With our baby, we try to speak to him. I speak to him in Spanish only, and my partner speaks to him in Turkish only, so that he'll have our languages as well. He's gonna have Jewish upbringing because my partner is Jewish, and for him it's very important that he has this learning and this part of his identity. I don't feel I have British things when I'm here, but then when I go home, there are certain habits and certain things that I have acquired. I mean, I lived with a lot of British people for a long time when I was sharing homes, so I picked up lots of different things. I still don't drink a lot of tea. The notion of going to the pub and sharing that, and at the beginning I didn't quite get it. Why would we spend so many hours just sitting down and drinking and talking, because we were used to dancing, but now I kind of like it. It's like meeting with your friends and spending that time there, and eating earlier, and there's lots of different habits and things that I think I've picked up. If I go back home, they would see that I am different, that I do some things in a different way, and that I think is for after 15 years of living here. Our baby is full-on British. We both have British citizenship, so it's fine, but we're still always going to be migrants, and he's born here. I'm very intrigued about how he's going to grow up and how he's going to feel with all of this mix. But I'm also very intrigued about how the world is going to change and how someone like him can live in the world. I want to believe I'm a global citizen because I try to think about it with that perspective. Modern living is that people travel and move and mix. So I don't think it's something that can be stopped. Sometimes in Britain, people they think that this is the only reality. You study the history of the world through the eyes of the British Empire, and I studied them through the eyes of something else, and my partner grew up in Istanbul, and the history books that he read are so different. Legally, I'm a British citizen with the same rights as everyone else, but I still have an accent. I still drink mate at home. People still tell me, oh, your English is very good. But it's a reality. I will be a migrant forever because I wasn't born here.
Malú Ansaldo was talking to Tim Finch.